Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Good evening, everybody. Hey, been gone for a few days. I think you guys realize that I haven't been out there for a while, but sometimes I have to do other work and sometimes I have to travel. And so anyway, I definitely had some fun and some good work. And also, I got some serious sun, as you guys can probably tell. But anyway, look, there's been a lot of articles. I think if you guys that are in Patreon and in Discord, I think while I was gone, thank you for being so patient. And thank you, Super Samson and Gigi, for all your guys' phenomenal work. You guys do a really bang-up job, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much. But today, just out of the blue, I'm going to get back to some stuff that happened over the last week or so. But there's an article out today that says CBI talking, no discussion of exchange rate. And there's a couple versions of it. But some of the clips that suggest that CBI Governor Ali Al-Laq emphasized that neither the central bank nor the government is considering any adjustment to the official rate. Goes on and talks about different exchange rates, etc. There's another article that was part of a forum, which is a really long read, and it's describing all of the things that happened at that forum this weekend. And one of the topics was the central bank. And I think the paragraph in the article that you can find in Patreon and in Discord quite easily, it says that part of that forum article, it says financial stability. It's a specific paragraph. I think it's the third or fourth down. And it's named financial stability. It says, Al-Laq explains the central bank attaches great importance to controlling inflation and financial stability. It says, pointing out that the lowest inflation rates in the history are currently being recorded, indicating that the presence of comfortable reserves that defend the exchange rate. The central bank governor pointed out that several channels for external channels have been open to maintain the exchange rate levels. It says, and for the first time, we have open transfers in currencies other than the dollar so that there is no bottleneck in demand, stressing that there is no discussion of adjusting the exchange rate. Okay, so if you unpack that, a lot of people were pretty concerned, and I would say not liking this conversation. But if you take it into context, you've got to really think about how important it is to have confidentiality in a revaluation or a devaluation. You really have to keep it close to your chest, and I think that's exactly what a good central banker like Ali Al-Laq, I believe, would know that specifically and would stay away from it, especially in a public forum like this forum. So anyway, just for what it's worth, the financial stability, the paragraph that I just mentioned, mentions the exchange rate, and it does say there is no discussion of adjusting the exchange rate. Well, there's probably very good reasons for Al-Laq, the central bank governor, to not discuss that in a public setting. It just wouldn't happen, and he shouldn't do that, and for many reasons. When there's a devaluation or a revaluation, it's critical to not warn the markets. There's a need for confidentiality around planned significant exchange rate changes to their implementation. Having secrecy helps preserve effectiveness of the bank's monetary policy by preventing preemptive market reactions that could undermine the intended economic outcomes. Makes common sense. It just does. And so it says advanced disclosure could trigger speculative trading, capital outflows, or inflationary pressures, ending foreign reserves, or eroding foreign reserves, and complicating stabilization efforts. Open discussion in a public forum of such changes would express the central bank to substantial risks. It actually would probably expose them quite heavily. Okay, so speculators might front-run their adjustment by buying and selling the currency en masse, amplifying volatility and potentially forcing the bank to intervene at a greater cost, or even to abandon the plan altogether. None of those things are any good. It could lead to self-fulfilling crises, so it could be an ongoing issue. such as a run on the currency or a loss of market confidence, which has happened before historically. Examples of emerging market devaluations. So they know that this can happen if you leak things out. So it's best for them to hold things close to the chest. For the CBI specifically, recent adjustments like the 2023 shift from to 1310 from 1450 were announced effective immediately. So in other words, they said, we're not going to tell you in advance. We're not going to tell you even after. We're just going to tell you it just happened immediately. Without prior leaks to mitigate such vulnerabilities in Iraq's economic challenges at the time. So they totally just all of a sudden just opened up and said, boom, we just did it. That's it. And was that a surprise? Yeah, it surprised everybody. Will that happen again? Well, based on previous examples, it's possible. Okay, so it says, therefore, the statement to not have discussion of adjusting the exchange rate is exactly right. You should not do that. They will not likely do that. And hence, that's why the discussion in an open forum suggests that there will be no discussion. It's that simple. So it's understandable, it's reasonable, and it's actually, to me, an interesting sign that it happened this weekend. So I'll leave that at that. So be careful on how you read things sometimes. It does take a little bit of understanding to know how sensitive a circumstance like this is. Okay, so I'm going to get into some things that, like, basically Iraq's economic transformation. I think everybody's been witnessing Iraq for the last 3 years has been going through an economic transformation. It's an era for stability and investment. Okay, that's as of September 29th, that's today. And here we go. There's going to be, like, I think 4 main areas that I'm going to try to cover. Resumption of oil exports, we saw that happen. Historic agreement that hasn't been seen for 18 years, but it took place within the last few days. The central bank's monetary achievements, so the central bank's been doing a lot of different things. Synchronized banking and custom reforms. Synchronized banking and custom reforms. That's an interesting topic. And the role of digital technology in supporting these efforts. So some of these we're going to talk about. So the first one is number 1 would be oil exports to resume. Well, we already know that they did. This goes on and says a major economic boost was on September 27th, 2025 at 6 a.m. And it says that Iraq restarted oil exports through Iraqi-Turkey pipeline to the port of Cyan, ending an 18-month suspension that began in March 2023, due to a legal ruling from a Paris-based arbitration court. So if you guys remember the past, that's what's happening on that. According to the news, it says that this followed a historic agreement finalized on September 22nd and announced by Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani on September 25th. Subsequent events, they're happening in sequence. A Kurdistan regional government, which they call the KRG, and international oil companies like the DNO and a company called Janel. It talks about the Turkish energy minister Alparslan Bayraktar. It talks about he confirms that the flow began at 7:07 a.m. So that was about an hour and 7 minutes, with 190,000 barrels a day delivered to Iraq's state oil marketing organization, SOMO, for export of 50,000 barrels per day retained for KRG's domestic needs, such as power and refining. And then it says this is to what happened is a significant milestone. We just haven't seen that kind of stuff happening. Okay, so the initial flow of 240,000 barrels a day is expected to generate about $400 to $500 million monthly for Iraq's federal budget. That's a pretty big chunk of change every month, you guys. And that's according to Mohammed Saleh, who obviously you guys know him as a prime minister advisor. But it says if it's scaled to full capacity at 2.2 million barrels a day, well, there's different degrees of that, so just 1 to 2 million barrels, but because of different articles. But their goal in print is 1.5, and this is a mention of 2.2, but it's in print that they gave an estimate for 1.5 to 2.2 million barrels a day. And you've got there's a significant importance to how much oil is going out of that pipeline going into Europe, because it's a lot of money. Okay, it could bring in, what, between 43 to $64 billion annually. And again, what have they been losing? They've been losing about 20 billion in losses. I think even 20 billion is significantly low. I think it's probably more like closer to 40 billion over that 18 months, but I'll go with the 20 billion. Still significant, a lot of change. I don't think I could afford that. Okay. It says U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio praised the deal on September 25th, noting it strengthens U.S.-Iraq economic ties and regional energy security. The agreement ensures salaries for 700,000 employees, KRG employees, at $900 million monthly, and that's in U.S. dollars, effectively. It says with a $16 barrel ESCO fund to settle $300 million in debts to oil companies within 30 days. So the arrears are going to get taken care of because they turn that oil on. So in other words, everybody's going to be made whole. The center, the region, and the IOCs, international oil companies. It says this liquidity supports Iraq's budget, reduces reliance on oil, which is currently 93% of revenue, and stabilizes the economy for further reforms. And then the number two, it says central bank's achievements. Record low inflation they talk about, strong reserves. The Central Bank of Iraq is playing a central role in this transformation as outlined by Governor Ali Alak in his September 28 speech at the Iraqi Investment Forum 2025, reported by the news agency. It says Alak announced that Iraq has achieved its lowest inflation rate in history. It's 0.8% in the second quarter of 2025. It's a 76% drop from 3.3% a year ago. Al-Alak highlights that comfortable foreign reserves. He highlighted the comfortable foreign reserves of approximately 100 billion US dollars, capable of supporting the dinar's exchange rate, balancing foreign currency supply and demand. And additionally, the CBI's gold reserves has reached 24 trillion Iraqi dinars, which is about $18.3 billion, or 20% of total reserves, which is up 135% since 2022. That is the historical milestone as well, and that was reported in the news on September 24th. It says these figures reflect CBI's successful monetary policies by reducing currency issuance by 3.8% to 98.4 trillion dinars and exiting the electronic dollar platform in the first quarter of 2025. The CBI has lowered parallel market premiums by up to 20 or over 20%, which is stabilizing the dinar. He emphasizes that these policies create a healthy investment environment, and we see nothing but that happening in Iraq as we speak all this last few weeks, attracting $3 billion in foreign direct investment in just the first half of 2025, over $100 billion probably since 2023. The stability is critical for potential changes to the dinar's value, possibly adjusting from the current 13.10 per US dollar to a stronger rate, possibly even surpassing certain projections. Okay, such a move would make Iraq's $400 billion reconstruction plan that they've targeted since 2023 could make the materials, etc., the expense upwards of 75% cheaper by making the dinar stronger. Okay, it says ultimately it'll enhance the dinar's global tradability. Number three is the synchronized reforms. So we have banking and customs modernization. Two critical deadlines are converging on September 30th, 2025. I'm pretty sure you guys all know that's tomorrow. To modernize Iraq's financial and trade systems, creating the foundation for global integration. First, the Oliver Wyman Banking Reform Plan requires private banks to submit commitments by September 30th, a deadline delayed from the end of 2025 due to banks' requests. This phase assesses capital adequacy, liquidity, estimated at about $20 to $30 billion, excess through the banking supervision reporting system, so that's the BSRS system, and anti-money laundering compliance following the closure of those 10 banks in August of 2025 for failing standards. It says this reform is essential for Iraq's bid to join the Bank of International Settlements. We saw an article on that just recently. Iraq's Al-Alak was with the Bank of England, and they were talking about joining the BIS. Okay, it's supported by discussions with the Bank of England in September, ensuring banks meet U.S. Treasury and IMF, International Monetary Fund requirements. The second thing is the IQD world system for this same day, right, effectively. An automated customs platform developed by UNCTAD, form of the UN, will complete its final phase by the end of September. That's in print, in Discord, Patreon. As confirmed by the Customs Director General Thamer Kassim in a September 14th news article. It launched in October 2023 at 9 customs offices covering 81% of trade. IQD will now operate at all border points, including the Qasr, Safwan, Arar, and Treble. It reduces goods processing time from 4 days to minutes. See the speed of the new technology? That's fascinating. What's it do? It's cutting corruption and increasing custom revenues by 20% in 2024. This supports Iraq's 11% non-oil growth and WTO membership efforts. With a third meeting held in July 2024 and a fourth that was planned for Q1 of 2025, the year's not over yet, but backed by recent article, Australia's trade councils in September 2025 supporting Iraq's accession. These synchronized reforms, banking and customs, align with the Prime Minister Soudani's new phase, end quote. Announced on September 15th, preparing Iraq for $500 million in World Bank and IMF loans secured by Deputy Prime Minister Fuad Hussein on September 24th, 2025. Together, they enhance Iraq's economic efficiency and global credibility. So you guys can see where this is headed, right? It's really phenomenal. Digital technology. The future of Iraq is also preparing to launch digital payment systems, known as the central bank digital currency pilots, if you will. So potentially in the fourth quarter of 2025, which we're entering in days, if not already behind the scenes, if not already. Because you guys got to remember, I talked about the Agora project and all that. That's been going on for years. And so just because we don't know about it yet doesn't mean they're not working on it nonstop or have been working on it, which they have. Okay, these pilots, end quote, managing 700 billion dinars monthly through the platforms like Zain Cash. I'm not sure if you guys realize that Zain Cash has been working with a technology company firm called Hedera. Okay, it's something we've talked about it. I have, at least. So anyway, they aim to test digital dinar transactions for domestic and international payments. The technology behind this may include new technologies that include XRP, Hedera, and the RLUSD, which enable fast, secure, and low-cost transfers. XRP's on-demand liquidity system settles transactions in about 3 to 5 seconds. Articles suggest sub-seconds. I'm leaning towards sub-seconds in the future. At minimal cost, proven in the Middle East pilots, handling $10 billion in 2024, Hedera's blockchain logs transactions transparently, meeting anti-money laundering standards, while the RLUSD Ripple's stablecoin offers 4% annual yields to stabilize funds. The recent launch of this new FXRP, which is not the Forex, on September 24th through the 25th, they did 4 to 5 million tokens minted in 4 hours, and they yield 6.8% for investors to be thinking about. Shows the potential for these systems to support Iraq's digital economy. A notable connection is Somo's contract with the major Swiss oil trader, like possibly Glencore or even Vitol, to resell Kurdish oil from Cyan to Europe and North America, as reported by the Economy News on September 27th. Switzerland's leadership in blockchain through projects like the Swiss National Bank's Helvetia 3 from 2024 through 2026 and Vitol's VAKT platform for oil trades suggests, okay, these digital tools could be tested in Iraq's oil transactions, aligning with so-called Q4 pilots that we're heading into and customs automation. The path to global integration is the last thing I'm going to pretty much get to. It says these developments, which include oil flows, monetary stability, banking and custom reforms, and digital technology, are setting Iraq up for integration with the BIS and the World Trade Organization. And they don't give it a time specifically, but it's in the short term. The BIS bid requires compliant banks, okay, the Bank of International Settlements, BIS, I call it, which Oliver Wyman's September 30 deadline ensures, while IQD supports WTO's trade facilitation standards. The $100 billion in reserves and low inflation provide the stability for a potential dinar revaluation, making reconstruction investment more affordable, like we talked about, potentially 75% cheaper, depending on what they come out at. And then it also says that the Iraq Investment Forum, which one we've talked about, where Allah spoke, signals openness to global investors with billions of foreign direct investment already secured and much more expected. I was thinking that I read that it was between 3 and 10 billion by the end of the year. Three up to now, and I think another 7 by the end of the year. And that's in this next quarter. So at the end of the day, a new era for Iraq. September 25 marks a turning point for Iraq. Oil exports are flowing, generating between 400 and 500 million monthly now. The central bank's policies have achieved historic low inflation and robust reserves. We went over all this. Banking and customs reforms are modernizing Iraq's systems, and digital technologies are paving the way for a stronger dinar. That's how I see it, and I think it's going to hold true. Iraq is poised to join the BIS, the WTO, enhancing the dinar's global role and unlocking economic potential. The next steps, what are they? Well, I'm looking for September 30 deadlines for the launch of the digital pilots in October. I'm looking at the Oliver Wyman circumstance that potentially could be public tomorrow, or anything about it. We're going to find that out. And the IQD system, implementation of those borders. I would suspect those things will be in the news at some point in time. Whether it's going to be tomorrow or not, I don't know. But, and I'm not calling it for a date either. But just giving you the information that I find to be fascinating and to be relevant, and that's what we do with Militia Man and Crew in Patreon and Discord. And thank you very much. If you guys like my content, always, like, subscribe, and thank you very much for your kind efforts. All of you that help via PayPal of late have been very kind. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much, and have a great day.